Hi guys, welcome back. So we are continuing with our series of having a look at the December 2023 SAICA final paper. Okay, so let's have a look at document 5 today, which is from Anthony, and this is particularly relating to ticket revenue for FY 2023. Right, so Anthony says hi again, and if I were to respond, if this was on the day, I'd make sure I say hi again, Anthony, exclamation mark. So basically, always return how the sender greeted you or the tone of the sender. Okay. One of the areas that external auditors will undoubtedly focus on is ticket revenue, as this line item is by far the largest amount in our financial statements. So in APC, you need to pay attention to key words or to words that just stand out. Here, Anthony said undoubtedly. In my head, I would ask myself, okay, why would external auditors undoubtedly focus on ticket revenue? He's given one reason, which is that this is the largest line item in the financials. But as an auditor, is that the only reason you would have a look at revenue? And the answer would be no. We know that revenue has a rebuttable fraud risk that inherently exists in it, and that's why auditors always have to have a look at that line item. So when you are reading, pay attention to these keywords that pop up and already start formulating what else is possible from just reading. Okay. I've asked our data analyst to extract the total rand amount of flight bookings and cancellation from passes so that I can compute a theoretical revenue figure for the 11-month ended 30 November 2023. Okay. That can then be compared with the actual revenue figure reflected in our trial balance at 30 November 2023. If we remember back, what is PISES? It's that system that we contracted out, and we just want to basically compare what is in PISES versus the actual revenue. Ideally, we would want it to be the same. So we want to see if there are any differences that could exist there, right? But before I start getting into how to have read this any further, let's just have a look at one of the reviews that we got from our previous year candidates. And this one is coming from Lebu, who's also joining us as part of the Back to Basics marking team. So Lebu said to us in a 5-star review, she's thrilled to write this review as Back to Basics was instrumental in her recent APC exam. From the onset, the professional approach and teaching methods made them stand out. Every tutoring session was thoughtfully orchestrated, keeping in mind everyone's learning style, pace, and areas needing improvement. The tutors are extremely knowledgeable, patient, and went above and beyond to ensure I understood complex concepts. What impressed me the most was their adaptability. My weaknesses were quickly identified from the first one-on-one session, giving me confidence in areas I previously struggled with, and the resources provided, such as previous past paper exams, were excellent, and this significantly contributed to my exam preparation. Thank you very much, Lebu, for that review. It really does keep us going as your mentors. Okay. Right, so going back to the scenario, let's have a look at the rest of the information. So we see there that's the rand amount of total flight bookings from 1 Jan to 30 November according to prices. And then they add unflown ticket liability, which is that deferred revenue on ticket sales. Okay, so that means that it's people who either booked for future flights but have not yet taken those flights. Okay, so that's as at December 2022, and they added that from the Fs. Then they subtract rand amount of ticket cancellations or refunds from the PISES system minus unflown ticket liability, which is the deferred revenue on ticket sales at 30 November 2023, to get the theoretical flight ticket revenue. And then they had a look at the actual flight ticket revenue per the trial balance at 30 November 2023. So that's how they got to that reconciliation there. Okay. Then I see there's a difference there between what they picked up from PISES and adjustment and what was actually sitting in the trial balance at 30 November 2023. So now let's just go back and see if their adjustment makes sense. So they added unflown ticket liability from last year minus rand amount of ticket sales slash cancellations from prices, and they've subtracted unflown ticket liability to get the theoretical revenue. Okay, so let's see what else they say about this difference. For some unknown reason, there's a difference of 1.5 million between the theoretical and actual revenue figures. Even though this may not be that material from an external audit perspective, given the magnitude of the revenue figures, I would appreciate you applying auditing skills to find the cause for this difference. Okay, On-Time Airlines is barely 3 years old and has experienced exceptional growth in since its incorporation, and we can validate that because we saw the first year of incorporation they had only 2 Airbuses, but then from 2022 they had 4 Airbuses. So definitely there has been some growth, and we are looking at buying another Airbus as well. However, just between us, I must confess that our systems of internal control and our business practices may not have kept pace with this growth, right? Okay, so he's mentioning that internal control might be a bit slow or a bit weak given the pace of growth. So that means that I would go all the way back from the beginning of the pre-release and see where can we apply controls. Right, where could controls be lacking in this scenario? Okay, I would also really appreciate your assistance with evaluating our systems of internal control, particularly relating to revenue. Hopefully that will help to avoid any recurrence of unaccounted for differences going forward. So she is mentioning that, okay, these differences could be solved by us having strong internal controls. And the head of sales and marketing, Jim Jackson, may help you understand our revenue system. As one of 5 operating divisional managers, he reports to the CEO. So I would suggest you set up a meeting with him. So here they're telling us we need to set up a meeting with the operational divisional manager, but already we can try to see, based on the description of how they generate revenue, what sort of internal controls would we expect to find in this on-time entity. Okay, so that's where I am now going to go all the way back. Right, so just scrolling all the way back to find where they gave us a little bit of a description on their revenue. Okay, so I am now on page 7 of the pre-release. Okay, and I am particularly having a look at ticket revenue and other revenue, which is our note A and B. Okay, so note A, AXA charges airlines such as on-time passenger service charges, aircraft landing fees, etc. And on-time recognizes landing and parking fees as an expense. Okay, passenger service charges collected from passengers by on-time are not recognized as revenue, but rather as a liability and paid over to AXA. So this is one prime example where we can determine what kind of internal controls would we have to make sure that service charges that is collected from passengers is not sitting in our revenue line item, because that could be one of the reasons as to why there is that difference in the reconciliation. Someone has accidentally booked service charges as revenue instead of as liability. Okay, so this is where now you would say we need to have a separate person who prepares the journal entry to recognize the service charges as a liability. And then we need to have, for segregation of duties, a different person with higher authority to review the journal and make sure that it actually was booked to the right financial statement line item. And remember, you would also go and confirm that this accounting treatment of passenger service charges is actually correct first before you can say, okay, this is the type of control we would have. So this is just an example of how you would go about preparing for these triggers, where you don't wait for on the day to see internal controls. Already, just based on your understanding of the entity and how they recognize revenue, you want to put controls in place. Okay. Then the next line item there, point B, they told us other revenue represents mainly food and beverages sold to passengers on flights. Okay, so what kind of controls can we have in that instance, right? Recons, I would say. If you think about it, if you're on a flight and you want to order something, most people do pay using cards, so we can have a reconciliation of what of the amount that was paid for versus what we see as being the stock that came off from our stock from that particular flight. So something like that, some internal control to just verify that the amount of revenue sitting in other revenue is indeed accurate. I'm sure you can come up with better ways of wording that internal control, but here we just want to show you how to go about thinking of internal controls already based on your understanding of the entity. You don't have to wait for on the day. And that's the biggest tip I can give you when it comes to audit tasks. Go back, read the entire scenario, say, okay, where is this line item? What controls would I expect here? It's basically like you're given a process description and you need to come up with controls. That's how you think about it. So with these audit type of triggers, take it back to, okay, which phase of the audit? What do I usually do? And if you are working audit, you know you don't design controls without having the process description. So that's what document 5 showed us there. They said we want internal controls over revenue. So what do you need to ask yourself? Where is the revenue process description so that I can formulate controls? All right. Okay. So that is it for document 5. I hope that you've gotten a brief overview of how to go about audit tasks. If not, please do go ahead and comment in the section, and then you can maybe book a one-on-one session with one of our mentors wherein we can go in depth with how else you could have identified more internal controls based on this scenario. Thanks guys. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell so that you can get notifications when we upload the next case, the next pre-release breakdown. Thank you.